Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vakratunda Mahakaya, Surya Koti Samaprabha, Nirvignam Kurume Deva, Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Friends, on behalf of Param Vedanta, I extend a heartfelt, warm welcome to each one of you to today's 20th session of Mananam series. Today, mantras 4 to 7 from Valli, second Valli, chapter of Kathopanishad, second chapter of Kathopanishad shall be covered. In these mantras, Yama reveals to Nachiketas the true nature of the self, that it is immortal, untouched by action or time, beyond duality, beyond killing or being killed, and it is all-pervading consciousness, accessible only to the pure-hearted seeker. When this truth is realized, fear of death vanishes, and life becomes a spontaneous expression of peace, compassion, and freedom. We are privileged to have Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir with us today, who will illuminate these profound mantras and guide us towards a deeper assimilation. Today's session will also feature an engaging quiz segment led by Dr. Anupama, adding a lively dimension to our learning. Let us listen with full attention and open hearts. Over to Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir.
Thank you, Shiv. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaivasvataya Mrityave Brahma Vidyacharya Nachiketa Secha. We now come to that part of Kathopanishad. We are in the second chapter, second Valli. And here, Yamadharmaraja will begin to address the question asked by Nachiketa right in the beginning of the first chapter in the first Valli. You will remember the question that Nachiketa asked. Yeyam prete vichikitsa manushya. Vichikitsa, there is a doubt which all human beings have. Prete, after a person dies. When a person dies, please let me know what really happens. Is the death complete or something that survives the death? Now, this is a very frequently asked question by students and seekers to acharyas. And many times teachers will evade this question. And one of the styles of answering this question by teachers is, what happens, life before death is more important than life after death. Implying really, if you are focusing on living a full life here and now, that is actually more important, because what happens afterwards will take care of itself. The entire Kathopanishad is an answer to this question, and in today's class, there will be a specific answer. I have to go back to some of the mantras that we studied in the last class. There are 3 mantras we studied in the last class, which is very similar to Navadvare Pure Dehe, the city with 9 gates. And that is how every first mantra of each of the Vallis, the 3 Vallis, begin with a very significant mantra. So what is a significant mantra in the beginning of the second Valli? It goes like this. Puram Ekadashadvaram ajasya avakra chetasa anushtaya na sochati vimuktasya vimuchyate etad vaitad. Wherever those mantras come with that conclusion, etad vaitad, these are very important mantras where Yamadharma Raja is telling Nachiketa, and through Nachiketa telling all of us, now this is the answer to the question that you asked for. Let us see how we get this answer. Puram Ekadasha Dwaram. There is a city with 11 gates. Now, what are those 11 gates? We have seen in the last class. I will not touch them. But in that city, more important than the Puram is what is called the Puraswami. It's like in a hive, what is the most important entity? It is the queen bee. And if you remove the queen bee, all the bees will disappear. When Sri Rama was banished and had to go to the forest for many years, when he was leaving Ayodhya, this was the situation. Everybody felt it was not worth living in the city of Ayodhya when Sri Rama is not there. Now, in this city, which represents my body, there is a certain Puraswami. And Yamadharma Raja is bringing our attention to who is that Puraswami. That Puraswami, he used the word Ajasya. Ajasya means that which is unborn. Note this word. Anything that is unborn is not going to die. And if it is not going to die, there is no question of rebirth at all. Second, he says avakra chetasa. That means it does not undergo any modification. Now look into all our cells. I have this body, and within this body, there is this Ātma tattva which we call as the embodied. And this embodied is unborn. It does not undergo any modification. Now, through Shravanam and Mananam, through my teaching, I understand I'm not the body, but I am the Ātma. And I know that the Ātma is not a part of my body, not a property of my body. All the teachings should come. That means through Shravanam, Mananam, Anushtaya. Anushtaya means I meditate on that Ātma Tattvam, who is the master of my body, who is the Puraswami. Now, Yamadharma Raja makes a declaration. Once you have meditated and understood, and you know you are not this body mind, but the Puraswami, who is Ajasya Avakra Chetasa, who does not undergo any modification, he gives you the Palashruti, the benefit. Na sochati. There can be no sorrow in your life. All sorrow is in relation to the body. You're not the body, you are the Puraswami, an independent entity. And then he tells you something, Vimuktascha. You are utterly free. This word Vimuktascha should be taken as Jivan Muktaha, which means all of us, if you have understood Kathopanishad, 2nd chapter, Valli 2, Mantra 1. If you have understood, you are Vimuktascha, you are free. And then Vimuchyate. The next big jump is there is no more rebirth. Yetad Vaitad. Tell me, is there any more learning that we need? You can see the entire Kathopanishad in answer to Nachiketa's question is answered in this one mantra. Now, let this mantra go into our heart. Take this as a seed and meditate on this one mantra. This mantra is Vedanta Shravanam Mananam Nidityasanam. It should be a conviction. I'm not the body. I'm not the Puraswami. And once I know there can be no sorrow in my life, I live how? Like a Jivan Mukta. And I know there is no question of death. When there is no question of death, there is no question of rebirth whatsoever. Way back, he had answered this question to Nachiketa. Na jayate mriyate va vipaschita. Who is vipaschita? Puraswami. The Puraswami is not born. When he is not born, he is not dead. Now, what is he talking about? All these mantras are talking about what happens once a person has spiritual knowledge. What happens to such a person? Such a person is a jnani. And for a jnani, there is no death. When there is no death, there is no rebirth. meditate on these. See the answer that this Upanishad has given. So let us go back to what are the 4 stages in spiritual evolution. First, I am body, mind with consciousness. Second stage, I am consciousness or Ātma with an incidental body. I have lived in so many bodies, they have come and gone. Look at your own photograph when you are small. Now make a big jump into Mahavakya. Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Third stage is I am the same Atma or consciousness in every body. This experience I cannot have. I can experience in relation to this body, but Vedanta tells me and Shri Krishna tells me I am the same in every body. And finally, in Kaivalya, we see about Eka Jiva Vada. I alone am. Everything else is of a lower order of reality. And when you mean lower order of reality, my eva sakalam jatam. In stage 4, I have moved from being a creature to being a creator. And the whole world is none other than my expanse. Now, what is this whole world as my expanse? Mantra number 2 says, Brihad Ritam, that Brihad, that infinite reality. Suchi Sad, it dwells in the heaven. As what? Hagam Saha, as the heavens. Antarikshat, in the space. Vasuhu, as the wind, it dwells on the earth. It dwells as fire. Hota, Drona Sat, Atiti, Nrishat, as human being. Vrashat, as the divine beings. Yoma Sat, in the space. Abjaha, it is born in the waters. Gojaha, born in the earth. Ritajaha, born in the sacrifices. Adrijaha, born from the mountains in the form of rivers. What does it mean? I am Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Everything that you see and experience, which you talk as my expanse, is a lower form of myself. So there is the creator and the creation. So you see yourself as consciousness and the whole world as your expanse or existence. So what does mantra number 2 says? That Atma that pervades my body is the same that pervades in every body. That Sarvagnya, that knower is Sarvatma. And that is why you had all these 18 or 19 entities. Now we come to more specifically mantra number 3, which talks of Urdhvam Pranam Unnayate. Now, if you look into your body, you will see a life force. There is something that is taking the breath in, something that is taking your breath out. And then Madhye Vamanam Asinam, somewhere in the middle, is seated the Puraswami. Vishve Deva Upasate. That means whatever I see, whatever I hear, whatever I experience is an offering to that Puraswami. Now let us come to the real question of when a person dies. What happens when a person dies? Now, one of the difficult jobs for us as doctors is to break bad news. When a person, you have done whatever you could do in the emergency or in the ICU, and the patient is away. And then once you know that the person is no more and you have confirmed it by all means, then a senior doctor goes out to the family and has to break news to the anxious people. And how do we express it? We have to say it in clear terms. And one of the ways we say is, he is no more. And when you say he is no more or he is gone, what is gone? Because the body is still there. The family was going to say, can I see the body? So the body is there. Who has gone? The body is still there. Atma Tattva cannot go anywhere. Now, we will come to the entity of understanding what is this subtle body. This subtle body is what we call the life force. In the last mantra, we said, Urdhvam Pranayam Unnayati. Now, Atma Tattva being infinite, it cannot do anything. when it cannot do anything, yet my body is enlivened by Atma Tattva. What is that entity which makes me alive? And that is what we call as Prana Shakti. And the Prana Shakti is part of my subtle body. And in a day-to-day example, in the older phones, you had a SIM. So you have the gross body, and then there is a subtle body. The subtle body is like a modem. You have the internet like the Atma. So the internet or the cellular space is able to activate the mind, which is in the form of the SIM card, and to activate the instrument, the phone. Now, in our normal parlance, whenever somebody dies, one of the messaging that goes, may his Atma attain Sadgati. And those of us who are students of Vedanta, you have a problem because Atma cannot go anywhere. But we will use the same language, because when we are in samsara, we have to behave like everybody else and we have to use the same terminology, even though we know Atma cannot go anywhere. But now when I say Atma Sadgati, Sadgati means good goal. Let it go to a good destination. What can go to a good destination? They're talking about the Sukshma Sharira. So today we will learn a little more about the Sukshma Sharira. Now, when you look at your body, our body is the temple. Now, there is a very nice prayer in Shiva Manasa Puja. And I will ask Dr. Anupama to chant it. Dr. Anupama, can you unmute yourself and chant this for me?
Yes, sir.
Keep your camera on, please. Keep your camera on.
Atma tvam girijamatihi sahacharaha pranaha shariram graham pujate vishayopabogarachana nidra samadhistitihi sancharak padayo pradakshina vidihi stotrani sarvagiro yadyat karma karomi tat akhilam shambho tava aradhanam.
So we have in our tradition such beautiful gifts, which we can internalize and use this in our regular transaction, in our thoughts. Atma Tvam. Now, here you're seeing in the form of Bhakta. You can visualize Shiva and say the real me is Shivoham. The one whom I identify as Puraswami is Lord Shiva. Girija Mati. My mind, because of which I'm able to speak, think, and speak, is the one who's born in the mountains, Girija, Parvati. Sachara. Who are all my helpers? The helpers are Prana. Shariram Griham. The abode is my body. Puja te Vishayopaboga Rachana. Now, I am getting so much inputs through my eyes and ears and all my sense organs, and this is my offering puja to the Lord. Nidra Samadhi Sthiti. That is why before you go to sleep, meditate on these words and see how you can see even your sleep is the form of a meditation. Sanchara Padayo. Because of my feet, I'm able to walk, and whatever I walk is my pradakshana. Whatever I speak are my stotrani. Yat karma karoti. Whatever actions I do, tat akilam shambho tam aradhana. This is the attitude of a karma yogi. Whatever I think, whatever I speak, whatever I do, can it be an offering to you? So now we have the same mantra, the mantra number 3, which says there is something called prana, which takes my breath in and breath out. Madhye Vamana Asinam. Asinam is situated. Madhye Vamana means the adorable one. The adorable is Shivoham, the Atma Tattva. Vishwe Deva Upasate. How do I do an offering? Whatever I see, whatever I hear, whatever I touch, whatever I taste are all my offering to that Atma Tattva within me. Let us come to the main question of understanding what really happens when somebody dies. Now, I am alive, all of us are alive because of Atma. But Atma is infinite. It is infinite and all pervading. It cannot do anything. But my body can do so many things. How does it happen? The Atma gives sentiency to my mind. My mind is called a Sukshma Sharira. And when the Sukshma Sharira has the ability to reflect consciousness, and when the Atma falls on my Sukshma Shariram, a new entity is born like a reflection in the mirror, and that is called the Chidabhasa. Now, this Chidabhasa is able to enliven my physical body. I have marked in red, remember. Atma blesses the Sukshma Sharira directly. Atma blesses the Stula Sharira or the gross body indirectly. Now, what happens when the Sukshma Sharira quits the body? So, the definition of death according to Vedanta is whenever the Sukshma Sharira leaves the body, it is like the SIM card leaving the body. The Atma is now no longer able to create that reflected consciousness. There is no longer Chidabhasa. With that Chidabhasa, the body now becomes a dead body, and breathing stops. Breathing is a proof of the Atma Tattva. Now, this is what we learned in mantra number 3. Now, this example will help about a man standing in front of a mirror. And whenever you stand in front of a mirror, a third entity is born. Is that third entity real? No, it is an image, but that image is very useful for transactions. So although it is not real, so whenever the Atma Tattva falls on the mind, the Atma Tattva can also be called as the original consciousness. When it falls on the mind, a reflected consciousness is born. That reflected consciousness is called Jiva, or for transactional purposes, we can use the word Jivatma. It is because of Jivatma, I'm alive, I can speak, I can breathe, I can talk. So there are two entities. Now, when you understand, sometimes in our text, the word Atma can be the original consciousness, it can be the reflected consciousness. Let us look at the next mantra, mantra number 4. This is the first mantra of today's class, which is talking about the same thing, about the reflected consciousness when it is in the body. That is the Chidabhasa when it is in the body, and when it leaves the body, what happens? Asya Vistram Samanasya Sharirastasya Behinaha Dehadvi Vimuchya Manasa Kimatra Parishishyate Yetad Vaitad. Yama Dharmaraja is giving another important mantra, and what is the word for word meaning of this mantra? Give me a moment. Asya Behinaha. When this Atma, now remember, whenever you're talking about Atma, Atma can remain original consciousness, or it can also be reflected consciousness. In our text, it is, you have to make a contextual use of understanding. When you say the word Atma, is it original consciousness or reflected consciousness? Clearly, we are talking here about reflected consciousness. When this Atma, Sharirastasya, when it resides in the body, or Vistram Samanyasya, or when it leaves the body. Vimuchya Manasa Deha, that means it is freed from the body. That means when the Sukshma Sharira leaves the body, Kim Parishishyate, what remains Atra in this body? Essentially, when the Sukshma Sharira leaves, the gross body is still there. Atma is still there, but that gross body is as good as a dead body, fit only to be cremated as quickly as possible. Otherwise, it can create a problem in the environment. That means how important it is that Atma Tattva interacts with the body. So we are bringing in an element of the Sukshma Sharira. I'll read the word for word meaning. When this Atma, remember Sukshma Shariram, which resides in the body, gets detached as it is freed from the body, what remains in the body? This is that. When this Atma, the reflected consciousness, is present, the body is alive. When this Atma, the reflected consciousness, is absent, the body is dead. Therefore, Atma here, original consciousness through the reflected consciousness is the cause of life in the body. Now you'll remember a Bhagavad Gita verse which says exactly the same thing. Utkramantam stitam vapi bhunjanam va gunavitam vimoda nanu pashyanti jnana chakshusaha. Yamadharmaraja is giving you that jnana shakti. He says, Vimuda, the spiritually unawakened persons are not able to see. But if you have the jnana shakshu, pashyanti, you will be able to see. Utkramantam stitam va. Whether the sukshma shvarira has left the body or it is in the body. Right now, fortunately for all of us, the Sukshma Sharira is still in the body. Bhunjanam. Bhunjanam, it is able to experience anything. Guna vitam, it is full of all the gunas. Vimuda. Vimuda means na anupashyanti. Vimuda, the fools, because they are not spiritually awakened, are not able to recognize that Jiva Tattvam, which has the ability Utkramantam to leave the body, or Sthitam Vapi. Right now it is within the body. Bhunjanam Va, who experiences or responds to Guna Vitam. Based on those, it is full of all these gunas. Pashyanti, however, those of us, because of Guru and Shastra, our eyes are now not ordinary eyes. Jnana Chakshu. You are aware of that conscious principle because of which you're able to see, hear, and so on. Now, I'm going to use a few other Gita verses which will help you to understand what is the meaning of the word Ātma. Remember Gita verse number chapter 5, verse number 7. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvan apina lipyate. Now, what is the meaning? Vijitatma, one who has mastered the body. Here, Atma means the body. Vishuddha Atma, one with the pure mind. Sarva bhutatma bhutatma. Here we are talking about Atma, which is the original consciousness, that self which is the same in everybody. So the same Atma can mean other things. Now look at another verse. Vasamsi jirnani yata vihaya navani grirnani naroparani tata sharira vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. Dehi, that means we are able to, just as a person gives up worn out clothes and puts on new one, so too this Atma Tattva, what is this Atma Tattva? The subtle body is able to take on a new body. And another verse, Dehi nosmin yata dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tata dehantaram praptihi dhirastar na muhyate. Now, wise people know that this subtle body can dehi nosmin yata dehe. Just as, you know, there is this body and there is also an indweller within this body. And so a wise person does not worry about, dehinosmin kaumaram tata dehantaram prapti. So one body, you have lived in so many bodies in this life. And when this body is old, you take another body. So just as in this body you have taken, so what's so great about taking another body? Now, what are we talking about here? About Dehi and the indweller. The Atma here is the subtle body. Now let us come to this verse, Ritam Brihat. Sometimes you get confused. If consciousness is all pervading, how can consciousness ever quit the body? The Sukshma Sharira alone can directly borrow. I'm repeating all this because it is so important. Sukshma Shariram alone can directly borrow life from the Atma. The body cannot get Atma directly, cannot get life directly from Atma. Two words which we are familiar with, which we need to remember. What is this Samanya Chaitanyam and Vishesha Chaitanyam? Samanya Chaitanyam means the original consciousness, which is all pervading. But when the original consciousness reflects on the mind, a reflected consciousness called Chidabhasa is born. That Chidabhasa is also called Vishesha Chaitanya. Now, mantra number 5. What is mantra number 5? Yamadharmaraja is bringing this point more and more clear. Na pranena, na apanena, mrityo jivati kaschana, itarena tu jivanti, yasmin nita tu upashritaho. Na pranena, na apanena. It is not because of prana or because of apana. Itarena. There is something else. What is that something else because of which we are alive? And that which is because of which we are alive, it is referring us to the Ātma Tattva or that consciousness. Na pranena, neither by prana, na apane. Kaschana mritya, does a mortal live? But he lives by jivat, itarena, because of something else. Yasmin, upon which these two depend on. So neither by prana nor by apana any mortal lives, but they depend on something else upon which these two depend. What is that? That is the original consciousness, now temporarily functioning as the reflected consciousness. Should I go into a little more detail? Now, it seems to us that the reflected consciousness is the cause of my sentiency. Isn't it true? Because of my mind, I am alive. And because of that, all these breathing happens. But this reflected consciousness, although we have to give a lot of credit to, the reflected consciousness does not have an existence of its own. It does not have life of its own. It has to borrow from the original consciousness. Just like when the postman comes and delivers a money order, as was done before, a lot of credit is given to the postman who delivers the money. But is the postman coming and giving the money? The credit goes to someone else who has sent the money, and the postman is only the delivery agent. So too, the Chidabhasa, the reflected consciousness, is only an entity which is transferring consciousness, but it does not have consciousness of its own. Come to mantra number 6. Mantra number 6 says Hantata. Now, this is just an expression. It doesn't mean anything. It's like, oh, it's just like, he says, idam pravakshami. Now, remember, Nachiketa, you have asked me this question. I'm going to answer. Guhyam Brahma Sanatanam. I'm going to tell you the secret of that Sanatana, that permanent Brahman. Yata cha maranam prapya atma bhavati gautama. Really, you have asked me that question. What happens to a person after death? What survives after death? Yeyam prete vichikitsa manushya. You remember that question? I'm going to answer that question. Hanta Gautama, O Nachiketa Pravakshami, I shall reveal idam guhyam sanatanam, that eternal secret, brahmetu, about Brahman to you. Cha, also, yatahau, atma bhavati. What is that which survives prapya maranam, after death? What is that which survives? What is that which travels? What is that which is all pervading? So the word for word translation is, O Nachiketa, I shall reveal to you the secret of the eternal Brahman. And I will also tell you about what happens for a jiva after death. Now remember, when he has spoken in that first mantra, what is that? It's not Navadware Pure. How does that mantra start? Eka Dashadwaram Ajasya Chetasa. You know, when he's talking about that Brahman, and he talks about Anushtanam, those who know about that that Puram, with that Puraswami, the city with 11 gates. And if you meditate on that, then what happens? You will not have any sorrow. You will become a Jivan Mukta, and then there is no death. Now there he's speaking about a Jnani. Now he's going to tell you what happens to an ignorant person, what happens to a person after death. In the case of wise person, all the three bodies, the gross body, goes into the earth. The subtle body goes into the various elements and the causal body. So the gross body, Virat, the subtle body, Hiranyagarbha, and the Prajna goes to Ishvara. And once the components are there, there is no more karma, there is no question of Punarjanma. This is what happens. Now Yama Dharmaraja is giving a very famous mantra. This mantra is one of the pramanams for Punarjanma. Yeni manye prapadyante shariratve dehinaha sthanu manye anusyamti yata karma yata shrutam. What does this mantra say? One. The slide is not advancing. All right. Anye dehinaha. Anye dehinaha, he talks about some jivas. Prapadyante, they enter yoni, into the wombs. Shariratva, for they acquire bodies. They assume bodies. Now, what happens to an ignorant person after death? This subtle body now acquires a new body. They may go into a womb, or they may attain to a plant form. That means it can go into two main forms. That is Stavaram and Jangavam. That means the moving plants and plants are stavaram. They are stationary. So in this mantra, which is a very important mantra, he says some jivas, he's talking about the ignorant jivas, enter the womb for acquiring bodies, and the others, because of their karma, assume plant forms according to their karma, according to their upasana, which means a new life, subsequent what happens, is decided about two things. It is decided upon my desire and what I deserve. And that is why in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, what is your last thought? Usually your last thought talks about all our desires. So it is the last thought which will decide your future birth. That is one aspect. The other is what I deserve. And what I deserve is based upon all my karma. So there are two things, yata karma, yata shrutam. Shrutam means whatever I have heard, whatever I have had experiences, all that I have heard and experienced leave a deep impression or create a certain vasana. And these vasanas make a desires, various forms of desires. That is why all of us, our future, our subsequent life is dependent on two things. Yata karma and yata shrutam. Shrutam means my desire. Yata karma is what I deserve. So when an ignorant person dies, what happens? The physical body dies and it mingles with the 5 elements. The Ātma of an Ajnani is also all-pervading. It cannot travel. We know that it is the subtle and the causal bodies which move from one body to the other. What happens and what is the future happens? An Ajnani's Ahankara travels and occupies the physical body of a deva, of a human being, or a plant, but this is dependent upon the law of karma. There is a mantra which comes in Mundakopanishad. In Mundakopanishad, there are what are called 5 Agnis. When we die, what happens? There is something called Panchagni Vidya. According to the Panchagni Vidya, the Sukshma Shariram and Karana Shariram will travel, and they go through 5 stages. It's called Swarga Agnihi, Mega, from the from the heavens, they come to the clouds, and from the clouds it comes down to the earth, Prithvi, and then it is eaten through vegetation in the male and then transferred to the female. So the jiva, the Sukshma Shariram, travels from Swarga to Mega to Prithvi, from Purusha to Stri, and this is what is given in the other Upanishad. Finally, what happens after death for a Jnani and for an Ajnani? This is what Kathopanishad and all the Upanishads says. the gross body merges with the 5 elements for both, for Jnani and an Ajnani. What happens to the subtle body? For a subtle body, it merges with the cosmic universe, whereas for an Ajnani, it travels depending upon one's karma and one's desires. And what happens for a Jnani? There is no rebirth because all the karmas are exhausted. For an Ajnani, the cycle will continue. We will now have a quiz to understand how much we have understood. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Dr. Anupama, please.
Thank you, sir. So as we have so clearly learnt, we know that these verses give us a very good understanding of not only the function, also the relationship of two factors. The Sukshma Sharira, which is represented by the most vital factor, the prana. Here, the word prana means Sukshma Sharira, which is comparable to a mirror. And the Chidabhasa. Whenever we say Ātma in these verses, we are referring to the Chidabhasa, which is also the Jivatma, the Puraswami, or you can also call it the reflected consciousness. Puraswami, Jivatma, reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa, all refer to the Ātma. And it is this reflected consciousness that lends a primary sentiency to our Sukshma Sharira. It is now the sentient Sukshma Sharira which gives a subsequent secondary sentiency to our Sthula Sharira. So the source of primary sentiency is the Chidabhasa. If we remember that, we know that Chidabhasa is the source of life in us, nothing else. So what is the relationship between Chidabhasa and the Sukshma Sharira? As we have learnt in Drishya Viveka, it is called a Sahaja Sambandha, a very natural relationship. That means they always coexist. They're inseparable, something like a mirror and its reflection. Now, due to the proximity of Sthula and Sukshma Sharira, we often confuse their role. The question here is, which of these two is responsible for sentiency in our body? Is it the Chidabhasa or is it Sukshma Sharira? Throughout this session, let us keep these two things as distinct, not interchangeable. Is it the Sukshma Sharira or is it Chidabhasa? Which of these two keeps us alive? Is it prana? Is it Chidabhasa? So let's try to understand with these questions. The first question is, we have learned in this mantra, two mantras were given as examples. One Anvaya mantra, which says, Urdhvam pranam unnayati. That prana shakti that draws air out of our lungs. This is called expiration. And apanam pratyag gasyati. That prana shakti, which again allows air to enter back into the lung. That means inspiration and expiration, the two stages of respiration that keep us alive. It is this prana shakti which allows us to breathe. When prana shakti leaves the body, we do not breathe. Therefore, we are dead. So is prana shakti responsible for life in us? Anvaya. Then we have the Vyatireka verse, which says, Asya vistram samanasya. Here we are talking about Dehinaha. Dehinaha is the Chidabhasa, the reflected consciousness. Now, this Dehinaha, Vistram Samanasya Sharirastasya. Where is this Dehina? It is situated in the Sharira. Asya Vistram Samanasya. Vistram Samanasya means separation. Or Dehad Vimuchyamanasya. When it leaves the body. Kim atra parishishyate. When the Chidabhasa, when the Pura Swami leaves the body, what remains in the body? Is there any faculty remaining in the body that could respond? That is the question. So, is Chidabhasa responsible for life in us? So, is it prana? Is it Chidabhasa? Based on that, we have these questions. So, in this mantra, prana refers to which of them in the brackets below, please?
Prana refers to the Sukshma Sharira.
That's right. The most vital component of this Sukshma Sharira is
Prana.
And death is Sthula Sukshma Sharira?
Whenever there is a separation between the Stula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira, technically it is called Viyoga. Yoga is joining together. Viyoga is the separation between Stula and Sukshma Sharira.
Okay. While in transit, once it leaves the Stula Sharira, the Sukshma Sharira is?
Absolutely non-functional. It does not do any work.
And it's comparable to which avastha?
It is comparable to Shushupti.
That's right. Absolutely right.
You want to go through it again?
Okay. So this is the diagram of the subtle body highlighting the prana, which is also represents the entire Sukshma Sharira. So prana here refers to Sukshma Sharira because it is vital. The most vital component is prana. Death is Stula Sukshma Sharira Viyoga. While in transit, Sukshma Sharira is non-functional and therefore it is comparable to Shushupti Avastha. Next one, sir. So why is prana important? See, in Shushupti, there is no mind. We're still alive. If a person is deaf or dumb, he could transact with these various methods of action. So if a person is blind, aided by a stick, he's still functional. But when prana exits, we know the person is dead. So prana devata is the most important devata. Any other malfunctioning organ is manageable. If prana leaves, one is declared to be dead. Next one, please, sir. So, in this same mantra, Asya Vistramsa Manasya Sharirastasya Dehina, we have this Anvaya Vyatirikta logic to prove that it is Chidhabhasa which lends sentiency to the body. So this is a form of cause-effect relationship. As we already know, Anvaya means presence of cause, Vyatirikta means absence of cause, Yat Sattve, Yat Sattvam, which is co-presence, and Yat Abhave, Yat Abhavam, co-absence. Only then Tat Tasya Karana. Taking an example, next slide, sir. Suppose, take the example of this child. Before consuming nuts, she's very fine. After consuming nuts, she develops an allergy. Conclusion, nuts are the cause of allergy. So now we know what is Anvaya Vyatirikta. At the time of death, both Chidhabhasa and Sukshma Sharira leave the body together. So based on this Anvaya Vyatirikta logic, we could say, in the presence of prana, body is alive, and in the absence of prana, body is dead. Therefore, prana is the direct cause of sentiency of the body. True or false?
It looks like true, but it is false. And we always say prana pochi for death. Now, although it looks like prana is the cause of life or lack of life or death, we should remember prana is there because of original consciousness. So in that sense, it is false.
That's right, sir. So logically sound, factually incorrect. Sukshma Sharira or prana functions only with borrowed sentiency. And this borrowed sentiency from the original consciousness, which is the primary source. Therefore, original consciousness as Chidhabhasa is the primary source of sentiency. And this Chidhabhasa blesses the body using Sukshma Sharira or mind as the medium. That should be very clearly understood. Next one, sir. So in this question, same verse again. What leaves the body at the time of death? Is it Ātma, the original consciousness? Is it Sukshma and Karana Sharira? Sukshma Karana Sharira with Chidabhasa? Chidabhasa alone? All of the above or none of the above?
At the time of death, Ātma will always be there. It can never leave the body because it is infinite. Sukshma and Karana Sharira leave the body, but when they go, the Chidabhasa also goes. So the answer should be number 3.
That's right, sir. Next one, please. Now, there are a set of 4 questions. The answers are like sequential. Why does Chidabhasa leave along with Sukshma Sharira? And what happens to this pair in Shushupti? Similarly, what happens during Pralaya? And what happens to this pair in Videha Mukti?
All right. See, why does the Chidabhasa leave along with the Sukshma Sharira? See, they are sahaja, they go together. You can never separate the Chidabhasa from the Sukshma Sharira. So when the Sukshma Sharira is there in the body, then Chidabhasa is there. When it leaves the body, it goes away. But then what happens to this prayer during sleep? All right. During sleep, because the Chidabhasa is enfolded, so technically there is no Chidabhasa, there is no reflected consciousness in deep sleep. The same thing happens in Pralaya. What happens to the pair in Videha Mukti? In Videha Mukti, of course, there is no entity whatsoever. It is not in an enfolded state. It has resolved completely.
Yes, that's right. I shall just repeat. The relationship between mind and Chidabhasa, which we have called the reflected consciousness, if we could remember, is very similar to a mirror and a reflected face. That's why it's called Chit Chaya or Chit Abhasa. So Chidabhasa pravesha into the mind makes the mind sentient. The relationship is physically inseparable, just as we cannot separate a mirror from its reflection. So the relationship between Sukshma Sharira and Chidabhasa is Sahajam, natural. Next slide, sir. So what happens in Shushupti? We know that the reflected consciousness, like the mind, exists only in potential form. It is not absent, it's dormant. And in Pralaya, the state of dormancy is more prolonged. What happens to this pair in Videha Mukti? We know that in Videha Mukti, the mind of a jnani dissipates for good. It is permanently destroyed. When there is no mind, the Chidabhasa naturally ceases to exist. Like when there is no mirror, there is no reflection. Next slide, sir. So in this same mantra, Yama Dharmaraja says, Dehinaha Dehad Vimuchya Manasya Kim Tatra Parishishyate. He's asking the question, once Sukshma Sharira with the Chidabhasa leaves the body, is it possible to elicit any form of response from it?
And the answer is none.
That's right. Because nothing remains, nothing vyavaharika remains. Like there is no life, there is no intelligence, no perceptive faculties. So who has gone? We cannot say Ātma has gone. Those faculties that were responding from within have left the body. That's all. Next one, please. So the next mantra, na parena, na pranena, na apanena, mrityo jivati kaschana, itaretu jivanti, yasmin tau upashritau. In this mantra, prana and apana refer to?
Refer to the Sukshma Sharira.
Itarena refers to?
Something other than that. It should be the original consciousness or Ātma.
That's right. Both prana and apana depend on what for sentiency?
Depend upon the original consciousness or Ātma.
When the body dies when what quits?
The Sukshma Sharira quits the body.
Yet, we think it's so important. Yet, we can confidently say prana or Sukshma Sharira is
Jada by itself.
That's right.
Insentient by itself.
Yes, that's why we know that it's not the primary cause of sentiency. The ultimate source of sentiency has to be
the Ātma alone.
That's right.
Go, because they are so important, please repeat.
Yeah. So prana and apana refer to Sukshma Sharira. Itarena means something other than, means the original consciousness. Both prana and apana depend on original consciousness for sentiency. Yasmin tau upashritau. They take the support of original consciousness. The body dies when Sukshma Sharira quits. So although Sukshma Sharira seems to be so vital, we should always remember it is Jada, the ultimate source of sentiency being the original consciousness. Next slide, sir. So here's a question. Death, which we have called Stula Sukshma Sharira Viyoga, happens to both Jnani and Ajnani. What happens to a Jnani, which is different from that of an Ajnani after death?
strictly, if you go by the first mantra, Ajnani is not born, so there is no death, whatever happens. But from a Vyavaharik angle, if you want, there is death only to the physical body. So I had put in a chart what happens to the gross body, what happens to the subtle body and causal body, because there is a complete resolution. The gross body merges with the cosmos, Virat. The subtle body goes to Hiranyagarbha, and the causal body goes to Ishvara. And there is no karma, there is no question of punarjanma for a jnani. So a jnani attains to what is called a videha mukti.
That's right, sir. So what happens to a jnani after death? The answer should be an emphatic nothing. The Sthula Sharira, like for everybody, merges with the Panchabhutas. Sukshma and Karana Sharira resolve into Samashti. In the case of a Jnani, all these three bodies merge with the corresponding total Ishvara. So just like an iceberg merges into the ocean. So this is called Videha Mukti. So we can say that Jnana Surya melts the iceberg of Sharira Trayam. Ātma of a Jnani is already Sarvagata. So this is merger without motion, which we call moksha. Next slide, sir.
I'm sorry.
These
slides are not moving. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one. So we have spoken about the Sharira Traya. What about the Vijnanamaya Atma, the Spuraswami, the Jivatma, the enclosed consciousness, which we called Kshetrajna?
It's like a pot space, total space.
That's right. Pot space merging with total space. And this is the Aikyam of Jivatma with Paramatma. Next one, sir. So, I'm sorry about the mistake. It is Yoni Manye. It has come as Yeni Manye. I don't know why. So, in the case of an Ajnani, we have dealt with Ajnani. Now we speak about the Ajnani. Yoni Manye Prapadyante Sharirattvaya Dehinaha Sthanum Manye Anusamyanti Yatha Karma Yatha Shrutam. So, this is a very important verse because this is a pramanam for punarjanma, which we seldom see. So the primary proof for punarjanma is always Shastra Pramana. It is called a Nischaya Yukti. So there is no experience of rebirth. This fact is apaurisheya. No human being can testify for this knowledge. That's why it is called a Shastra Pramana. The supporting evidence, of course, we have when we see child prodigies, and this is called Sambhavana Yukti. Next slide, sir. So, what is it that determines the type of shariram that we can be reborn into? Is it probability and chance, or is God responsible for it?
Certainly, God is not responsible. We are responsible. And if we are responsible, it is by two ways. I have already mentioned that. One is by the law of karma determined by our actions. The other is about our strong vasanas. So it is that karma and shrutam. Shrutam means our vasanas, the deep impressions, and that creates in the form of desires. And that is why the 8th chapter, it is said the last thought or your last desire determines your next birth. So the next birth is determined by the law of karma, and to some extent it is fashioned by your own vasanas or desires.
Absolutely right. So as you said, every event is governed by law. Birth is not an accident, but in accordance with Purva Karma, Yatha Karma, Yatha Shrutam. Next slide, sir. So Yama Dharmaraja has told us that it is a cumulative effect of all janmas, a punya papa karmani, which is responsible. Punyena punya lokan nayati, papena naraka loka nayati, ubhayam eva manushya lokam, all of us. Next slide, sir. So in this verse, there is a very important word, which is called Sharirattvaya. Sharirattvaya means in order to acquire an appropriate body, as if the Sukshma Sharira is just wandering around searching for a suitable body. What, according to Shastra, is the purpose of acquiring a new body?
See, we have so many karmas that have to be expressed, and the expressing is possible only through a combination of gross and subtle body.
That's right. So Sharira Tvaya, because Anubhava is possible only through a Sthula Shariram. So if the medium of Sthula Shariram is not available, no experience is possible. Even if somebody is in Swarga Loka or in Swapna Loka, the physical body may not be perceptible, but Sukha can be experienced with whatever appropriate body is available at that situation. Therefore, this physical body could be perceptible or imperceptible. And this body has to be in contact with any world of experience to experience Sukham or Dukkham. That is why the Jiva goes in search of a body. Next slide, sir. So according to this same mantra, what are the two types of physical bodies that could be acquired?
Sthavaram and Jangavam. That means it can be stationary or mobile.
That's right. So the physical body could be Jangama, moving, or Sthavaram, stationary. Next, sir. So there are two other important words in this mantra, Yatha Karma, Yatha Shrutam. You have already explained. Can you please explain it once more, sir?
Yatha Karma, all our past actions will determine whether they are punya or papa. So that decides that is our karma. Yatha Shrutam is whatever my experiences, and especially the deep experiences, produce what are vasanas. And Shrutam, whatever I've heard, whatever I've experienced, leave impressions in my mind. The impression leads to various desires. So it is a combination of my desires and what I deserve, the two Ds, desire, and that is what is Yatha Karma, Yatha Shruta.
That's right. So Yatha Karma means acquisition of a new body in accordance with Purva Karma, not much control. And Yatha Shrutam. Shrutam means Upasana. Upasana is not necessarily meditation upon any deity. It could be any constant thoughts in our mind which develop a vasana within us. Next slide, sir. So we have seen in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna had said, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam evaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavati. So whatever be our preoccupation becomes our future. The story of Jadabharata, who died a yoga brashta, who could have got moksha, died thinking about that little deer that he was taking care of, and he gets reborn as a deer. In contrast, Ishvara Chintana does lead to Ishvara Aikyam. We have the Shreya Marga or Priya Marga. Long back, Yamadharmaraja had said, Shake Mahi, we have a choice. Next slide, sir. So again, in these two verses, Krishna had said, a karma yogi who's unsuccessful in his spiritual pursuit, called a yoga brashta, could be reborn into a cultured and prosperous family where his parents could facilitate his spiritual goals. Shuchinam, Shrimatam, Gehe. Or, very rarely, a child of this caliber could be born into a family of wise sages. Athava yoginam eva kule, a child whose parents are jnanis. Very rare, but possible. Thank you, sir.
Our profound thanks to Dr. Timoppa Hegde sir for a brilliant explanation of these difficult mantras, and to Dr. Anupama for an excellent quiz. Dear seekers of truth, let us gather again in Satsanga on Friday, 28th of November at 6:45 p.m. for the 17th session, which is a summary session of Tattva Viveka, first chapter of Panchadashi. In this session, we will see that Swami Vidyaranya reveals that consciousness alone is real, eternal. The world appears is but a play of Maya, ever changing and dependent on that one truth. The ever-free self is witness of the body, mind, and all experiences. By discriminating the real from the unreal, the seeker rises beyond illusion. As the same sun reflects in many waters, one Brahman appears as countless jivas. When this understanding dawns, the sense of I and mine dissolves. What remains is the silent radiance of pure awareness, Brahman, the infinite peace that is our own true nature. Friends, let us now chant the Shanti Mantra and conclude this session. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.